Hello, this video is going to cover Chapter 4, Section 3, Hyperbolas, Part 2. Today we're going to be working on writing the equations of the hyperbola. It is 4.3f, if you're keeping track of it that way. So as a reminder, here are the standard equations of the hyperbolas. If it is a horizontal hyperbola, then it's x minus h squared over a squared minus y minus k squared over b squared equals 1. The minus is in between, which is important, obviously, and the a, whichever comes first. The a squared is whatever comes first, so whichever variable has the positive sign. And that's what makes it horizontal if it's x. If the first term is y, then it is a vertical hyperbola, and it's y minus k squared over a squared minus x minus h squared over b squared equals 1. Both of them have to equal 1. The minus has to be in between them, and the x always goes with the h, and the k always goes with the y. So we did this a lot last week, but obviously now we're reversing it. We did a lot of graphing last week. Also, as a reminder, the asymptotes of the hyperbolas, if they are horizontal, it's k plus or minus b over a. That's the difference between horizontal and vertical, times x minus h. And then if it's vertical, k plus or minus a over b, x minus h. So again, that's if it's vertical. So you're going to get given different kinds of information. I would recommend, like we did with the ellipses, trying to plot what you've got so you can figure out what kind of hyperbola it is. From there, you'll know which equation to use, and then you'll need the a and the b, and then, of course, the center, the h, and the k. Remember also that your c squared equals a squared plus b squared with hyperbolas, because a lot of times you're going to get given 2 of those 3 pieces of information, and you'll use that equation to find the third. All right, so we're going to use the information given to determine if the hyperbola is vertical or horizontal. That's where we'll start. We'll find the center, which is going to be halfway between any foci that they give you, or halfway between the vertices, or halfway between the covertices. You'll figure out your A and your B. Remember, the A is the distance from center to vertex. B, center to covertex. And then C is the distance from the center to the foci, or focus. Just like ellipses, those 3 things are the same. We just said this, but remember, c squared equals a squared plus b squared. And we talked about last week, but as a reminder, the transverse axis, which used to be the major axis, those are the same things, is 2a. The conjugate axis, which used to be, we use the wording of minor axis, that's 2b. So they're going to give you some sort of information in this, and then you'll figure out if it's vertical, horizontal. You'll find your center, and then A and B. All right, we start with example 5. So it says, find the equation of the hyperbola, and we are given the foci and the vertices. So foci being -3, 0, and 3, 0 means I'm going to the left, and that's a focus, and I'm going to the right, and that's a focus. And that tells us a lot already. That tells us our center would be halfway between them. So the center is 0, 0. That's going to be my H and K. It tells us it's horizontal because the foci falls on the transverse axis. And if it's horizontal, it's x squared minus y squared. So already you have the numerators because you've got x squared minus y squared, and there's nothing added or subtracted from either. And you know it's going to equal 1. Now we have to fill in the a and the b. So the other piece of information you get from knowing your foci is that C is 3. So all that information we know just from that first piece of information that they gave you. Now we go to the second one, and that says there are vertices at -2, 0, and 2, 0. And that's consistent with knowing that this is a horizontal hyperbola, and those branches would point out around the foci. So this confirms the horizontal, and it tells us A, because A is the distance between the center and the vertex, that A is 2. So because A squared was under the x squared, I can put 4 there now. And all I need is the B squared. We have A and C, which means we can use C squared equals A squared plus B squared. So 3 squared equals 2 squared plus B squared. 9 equals 4 plus B squared. Subtract the 4. And B squared is 5. We don't need the B, so I don't have to square root it because it's not asking where the covertices are. I don't have to graph it. All I need to do is replace that B squared with what we just found to be B squared, which is 5. And then that's the standard form of this hyperbola. All right, on to example 6. This time it says there are vertices at -1, 1 and asymptotes at y equals -4x and y equals 4x. So let's start with the vertices. Our vertices are at -1 and +1. So the first thing I know is center would be halfway between these. So my center is 0, 0. Those are my vertices, so that means that this is, again, horizontal, which means it's x squared minus y squared equals 1. And I know A is 1. Now, if I go to my asymptotes, I get y equals 4 and -4x. And the equation for the asymptotes when the center is at 0, 0, and it's horizontal is y equals plus and minus b over ax. Well, if this is supposed to be 4x plus and minus 4x, then 4 would equal b over a. And I know a is 1. And that tells me b has to be 4. So if I had done 4 over 1, that would reduce to 4, and then that would give me my plus and minus 4x. So I know a is 1, x squared is going to go over the a squared, which would be 1, and b is 4, so y squared is going over b squared, which is 16. You don't need the 1 underneath the x squared, but it won't mark it wrong, so if you do leave it, it's okay. All right, example 7. This time it starts with the foci again. So 0, -5, and 0, 5. So center at 0, 0 again. And it's vertical, which means y squared minus x squared equals 1. C is what I know from the foci, and C is 5. Then it says y equals -3x and positive 3/4x, is your asymptote. Remember, asymptote, if it's vertical, is plus and minus a over bx. So a over b equals 3 over 4. I want to say that a is 3 and b is 4, but you also have to keep in mind that there are times in which those can be simplified fractions. So you want to check against your c squared equals a squared plus b squared. So 5 squared should equal 3 squared plus 4 squared. And 25 does equal 9 plus 16. So I know this is the right A and the right B. If it didn't equal c squared, then it's possible but that these were reduced, and we were looking at something like 6 and 8. So that's how you would know the difference. But this checked out, so I'm going to put the y squared over the a squared, which is 9, and the x squared over the b squared, which is 16. And there's the standard form of my equation. All right, we're going to do example 8, and then that will be the last one for today. We'll save the next ones for tomorrow, and you can use the time left remaining to work on the homework that matches the questions that we already did. If you want to try the other ones, you certainly can, but if you want to leave those for tomorrow, that's okay too. So 8 says there are vertices at 0, -2, and 0, 2. I know my center is again at 0, 0. It's the vertices, so it's vertical, which means it's y squared minus x squared equals 1. And a is 2. So y squared goes over a squared. That makes that 4. The only thing missing is my b squared. The second piece of information it gives me is that it passes through -2, 5. -2, 5 doesn't help me figure out a covertex because I won't know the exact box. It confirms that it's vertical, but it also is my x and my y. So I can plug those in to the x and the y, and then the only unknown is b, and I can solve for b. So my y squared is 5 squared over 4 minus the x squared, which is -2 squared over b squared equals 1. That's 25 over 4 minus 4 over b squared equals 1. I have to work to isolate the b squared, so I'm going to subtract the 25 fourths. I get -4 over b squared equals, to combine these into 1, I have to give them a like denominator. This would be 4 fourths minus 25 fourths, and that's -21 fourths. Now I can cross multiply, so the negative can go with the 4, so -4 times 4 would be 16 equals, cross multiply here, b squared, or sorry, -21 b squared. This should be -16 because of this -4. And then divide both sides by 21, -21. And I get b squared equals 16 over 21. So even though it's not a pretty denominator, it is correct. Y squared would go over 4 minus x squared over 16 over 21, and that equals 1. WebAssign will accept it like that. A standardized test would keep, change, flip this, which brings the 21 to the top. So y squared over 4 would be minus 21x squared over 16 equals 1. And that would be the best answer. All right, so we're going to stop there today. You can use the rest of the time to finish up on your, or to start, sorry, your homework. I am going to give you an extra day tomorrow to finish out the extra examples on this and to work on the homework as well. So you don't have to do all of it if you want to do like half. Everything that is covered on that homework, we did cover, so you've done enough. But if you want to see some extra practice, that's definitely an option. And the very first question is graphing. So we go back to what you did, just some extra practice on what we did last week. So make sure on the graphing question you include all the work and then graph it just like you did last week. Have a great day, guys.